Welcome to the Intern Whisperer. The show is all about the future of work and innovation. Today's Intern Whisperer employer tip of the week is inclusion starts with the introductions. When you have new interns or new employees coming into your office, you want to be sure to introduce them to others in their department, the key staff they might have to interact with. Of course, you're in HR. They should be meeting all of the staff, but depending on the size of your organization, you want to make sure that they're meeting the key people to help them transition easily. Today's guest is Xaulanda Simmonds-Emmanuel. Welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you.
Yay. A little round of applause. That's my personal sound effect. So congratulations on having the most downloads.
Thank you. That was such a pleasant surprise.
Oh, it was no surprise to me because first off, I know you and Jessica are so well loved.
Oh,
And it is true, honestly. I can tell that. And you guys were like neck and neck. And when you post something on any social feed, everybody comes out from all of LinkedIn and starts showing you love. And I'm not going to lie, I'm sitting here going, man, I want some of her magic juju juice on me because like, you are amazing and people know it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's great because you're going to be starting your own podcast. Let's just kick off the show with that. I know we have other questions, but like, let's start with that one.
Yeah, I'm collaborating with two of my colleagues, Chris Majoka out of Orlando and Tristan Jones out of St. Croix. And we're calling it the Entrepreneur's Trip. Because we're all entrepreneurs, right?
Yes.
And while there's a lot of resources online talking about you need to do a business plan, you need to do a marketing plan, all of the technical things, we wanted a space where you got the real life, nitty gritty experience of being an entrepreneur, because there's a lot of rewards, but there's also a lot of treacherous terrain that you have to navigate. And if you try to do it yourself, it can be really, really daunting. It can be mentally exhausting. You can experience burnout. And so we decided, let's come together and share our experiences and connect with other entrepreneurs and see how we can support each other. And I think it's even more important now, particularly because, in 2020, we thought, okay, we're going to deal with this COVID. It's going to be done in 2021. And then we were trying to figure out the new normal in 2021. And now we're dealing with Omicron and the variants and all of this stuff. So it's like, it seems to be piling on for not only entrepreneurs, but just people in general. And how can we create the communities of support for us to be as healthy as we possibly can be in this?
And you're talking about mental and emotional health, not just physical
Absolutely.
health. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to add this to what you're talking about. Being an entrepreneur is extremely stressful, and they suffer a lot with mental, I can't say disorders, but depression for sure, and anxiety, because where's the money going to come in? Now, not everybody always has a strong circle of influence when they first start a business. And what's interesting to me is that within 2 years, a business will actually shut its doors if they're not making money within 2 years. Statistically, it'll say that. I think a lot of it is because people are not mentally prepared for how hard this is. This is effing hard. I can't say it on my show because it goes out on Valencia College Radio. Yep. But this is incredibly hard. And people don't understand that overnight success, it doesn't happen overnight. No. It actually is like 10 years in the making. By the time, if you stick with it within 4 to 5 years, you should be hitting, at that point, you're getting like, oh, okay, I've got some money coming in. All right. And absolutely. 10 years is like, think about Facebook. How long did it take Facebook? They make it look like it was overnight. Yeah. And it was rapid growth, no doubt about that. But how old is Facebook? Like 15, 18 years old now?
Yeah.
In the 80s.
Yeah. And, I think as entrepreneurs, because I've done this entrepreneurial thing before, and I tripped and I fell and I felt like I busted my face and bruised my ego because I'm a super achiever and I try to succeed at everything. And, you embark on an endeavor like this, which is kind of like your baby, and it fails and it your self-esteem takes a bit of a hit, right?
Mhm.
And if it wasn't for the support of my family and my friends and my colleagues that were like, okay, that one didn't work, but you're not starting from ground zero, Xaulanda. You have all this experience for you to be able to start over again. And I tried twice. And this is my third attempt. And
That's
the
normal
reason,
too. By the way,
Mhm.
that is normal.
Yeah, a lot of the times we don't think about it. We think like, you tried the first time and you're an instant success, right? And for me, I think my why in doing it this time was completely different than previously. My daughter had a lot to do with my why as to why I decided to venture out on my own. But I also have a really good support system, which
Mhm.
has helped me through the last year because we launched Ambitious Sky Group back in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic.
Mhm.
So last year was better than we expected.
Mhm.
And I just laid out my 2021 integrated roadmap of all the things that I have on my plate to try to figure out what I'm gonna, get done in Q1 through Q4 and what I'm hoping to monetize by whatever quarter into 2021 that I'm working on. And so I'm just super excited about 2022. And so when I woke up the first morning and saw that I had the top download, I was like, yes, what an
That's a good
awesome way to
sign,
start the
right?
year.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
excited for you for sure. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. So the other thing about having a podcast that I think most people don't recognize is it takes a lot. This is another full-time business, honestly, because
Mhm.
if you are doing it properly, you're scheduling all of your guests, like a quarter. You should be like
Yes.
2 months ahead, preferably 3. You've got your show notes set up. You've got a system in place. And I usually sit down and I show people, so you want to start a podcast. Let's talk about that. And I go through, okay, let's make sure, do you have consent forms? Do you have your
Mhm.
audio files? Like, what is it that you're going to do? And I know it's easy enough to just like truly pick up. I use Podbean as my hosting
Mhm.
site. I could do a podcast straight from my phone, and many
Right.
people do. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that. However, if you're making it into something that's more of a monetized, and again, you can do it just with your phone and a
Right.
Facebook video or a YouTube video. You
Mhm.
don't have to have fancy stuff. Just start that way. And then your show can morph and evolve, but it's the consistency. You have to
Yes.
show up every week. You have
Mhm.
to be somebody that's, planning this out.
Mhm.
And many people will start it and they'll do like, I've heard, like today I was talking with somebody and he said he's done 9 episodes and then he stopped
Yeah.
because it's a lot.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And, before I even got into podcasts, I was a host of a radio show when I worked at the hospital here in St. U.S. Virgin Islands. And it was every Saturday morning, 9 o'clock live. So I had to be, butt in seat in front of the mic with my guests ready to go at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I did that for an entire year. So when I moved away from St. Croix and we were trying to get another host to do it, we couldn't get anybody to do it because it really is a commitment. It's whatever that topic is or the audience that you're hoping to serve, there has to be a heightened level of commitment, to be able to push through those. I remember there were mornings I was just totally exhausted and I wanted to stay in bed, but when you're live, you got to be there.
Mhm.
So I have that experience under my belt. And then I was also part of helping Urbander, which is a company that I work with, launch I Have Something to Say. And so Chris and I both worked on that project. So we have a little bit of an idea of the realities of podcasting.
Mhm.
When
Who?
Chris Majoka,
Okay.
yeah, he's amazing. He's out of Orlando, graduated from Full Sail, does podcast and videos and storytelling. He's an absolutely wonderful colleague of ours. We work together with Samihima Moreiro of Urbander, and she's the host of I Have Something to Say, which is another podcast. So yeah, that's where it gets down to what we were talking about earlier, having that support system in place, whether it's becoming an entrepreneur or starting a podcast or starting a new project. It's really having, those people who are around you to help support you and you support each other to grow, right? So everybody's tides rise together. It's not just oh, I want to grow and I'm not worrying about somebody else. It's definitely a mutually beneficial relationship. And I think that sometimes that's hard for some people to create in this virtual environment. I'm very much an introvert. I don't want to even think about all the millions of people or whoever is listening to us right now. It's just me and Isabel, right? And we have such a great relationship and I can open up. So it's really making that human to human connection.
Yep. I do totally understand. So this show, because you've been a guest before, we don't have the same type of a format. So we're going to have a deeper dive, a different kind of a conversation for sure. So I'm really glad that we talked about the podcast stuff first. When do you plan on launching this?
Q1 of 2022.
Oh,
so
well,
we don't have much time. Tomorrow, no, I'm just kidding. In a couple of weeks.
Okay, so maybe towards the end.
Yeah, towards the end.
Okay, so I sent you show notes. So if you like those, use them as a format. You can do whatever you want, but it's helpful to have something when you're wanting to have more of a formatted conversation for sure. Yeah. The other thing is I sent you a consent form. Save it. Yes. You're going to need it for your guest.
I did. And I signed it and sent it back.
You sure did. I meant to tell you, you did not need to send this one back because I had it the first time.
You had the other one.
But that's okay.
I'm just trying to follow the rules.
I know, but I'm really glad that I did send it to you. And then I sent you that FAQ. So hopefully you have those 3 pieces and that'll help you tremendously with being able to get started.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
I don't know if you thought of that, but I went, those are presents. So
oh,
for sure. Well, usually what we jump into is tell us about yourself using 5 words. So I know our listeners may not. You can use totally different words now because you can say podcaster because you are that. Whatever.
5 different words.
What are your 5 words and why?
I think for 2022, my 5 words, can I use 3 together? It's just do it. It's just do it, which is the Nike slogan, but I add on deliberately and strategically because it's one thing to be in action. It's another thing to be strategic about the action that you're taking and to deliberately follow through on each of the action items that are needed to make sure that whatever your vision is becomes a reality. So those 5 words would be just do it strategically and deliberately. That's my little motto for 2022.
So this is my, I'm really working to get rid of so, and I just did it. It's my transition thinking word. I'm going to start over again. I have my key word that my focus word is for the year is communication, because I realize I thought I was a good communicator. I am not. It is either going to happen. No, it's not either. It will happen.
It happened.
There's no, when I talk with the interns that work with me or with other people that, I coach, I will say I think I can, I believe I can, and I know I can. Which one does an Olympian say? And they all said, I know I can. Yeah, there's no doubt. So if that's really going to happen, you've already decided mentally and emotionally, that it will actually happen. And that's key.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely a mindset for achieving your goals and having the action to follow up.
Whether it's losing weight or launching a company or whatever it is you're trying to do.
You definitely have to believe it before you do it. You have to see it before you achieve it, right? You have to claim it before you acquire it. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So our listeners may not know some of your educational background, but we don't have to worry about that too much. Let's talk about the difference between your 2 companies that you work with. Well, you're involved with several. Urbander, you mentioned that one, and Shiskai. Let's go ahead and talk about those. What do they do?
Well, Urbander, the president and founder is Sammy Heyman Marrero, and we are multicultural strategist with a specialty in the Latino market. So we work with organizations in integrating Latino strategy from a communication standpoint when it comes to their consumers, their employees, their community, and vendors, their supplier diversity program. So that's Urbander, and the company has grown. She's had the company for about 13 years, and which is a true testament to being an entrepreneur and making sure, especially when a lot of companies fail after 3 to 5 years. So 13 years is a huge accomplishment for Semi, and she's She's an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. That's what I like to call her, because
Mhm.
she's like one of my biggest cheerleaders. I think I even put that on LinkedIn this week when she was sending me bravo for accomplishing the goal of the podcast. So yeah, that's Urbanger. And then the Sky group, we initially started out as, my background is in healthcare administration, and I'm working on my PhD in industrial organizational psychology. And I started it with my daughter, who's a virtual assistant. So we were doing some OD work and virtual assistant work, but now it's evolving a bit into learning and development and curriculum development as it relates to leadership, as it relates to employee relations, customer service, especially within the Caribbean, which has a very unique and distinct culture.
Mhm.
We infuse that Caribbean essence into our training because we deal with a lot of companies within the Caribbean. So yeah, that's the two companies that I work with primarily when I'm not doing fun passion projects
So we're going to switch over
outside.
to something else too, because I was looking at the Good Network. I honestly have not renewed my memberships yet,
Mhm.
and I need to, but I didn't make a single meeting last year. It's just like, you know what? When you have a business to run, it's like nothing else seems to be able to make it
Mhm.
on the list of the to-dos.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, I have that. And I also saw that you and Christina are co-president for the Good
We are
Network. When did that happen?
We had elections back in November of 2021. And so we officially started as co-presidents on January 1st. And I'm super excited. As you know, the Greater Orlando Organizational Development Network is an amazing
Yes.
community of OD professionals and others that are in related fields. We come together. And during COVID, what's been interesting is we had to pivot quickly from our in-person meetings that we used to have to virtual. And our VP of programming at the time, Anita, did an exceptional job making that transition. But what's been really awesome is while we initially started out in Central Florida, because of COVID and going online and really expanding our LinkedIn community, we've somewhat become international. Like we have people who are part of our LinkedIn group from other countries outside of the US, Canada.
I'm glad to hear that. That was often
Mhm.
talked about when I was president. And there
Mhm.
was some resistance, people were going, no, we don't know how to do that, but it looks like it got figured out.
Well, you know what? Necessity is what did they say? Necessity
Mother
is
of
the
invention.
yeah. So while, we like that small, close-knit group, we realize that we're still able to obtain that feeling of community and human connection, even
Mhm,
though we've gone virtual.
mhm,
Yeah.
mm.
So I'm excited. I'm excited about 2022. We have a new board that just got elected, and we're getting ready to do our strategy meetings and offer programming for our members. So it's an exciting time.
So are you guys because it's been a year, I haven't been to anything. Are you guys recording these and then are
Bi-monthly.
are you keeping a library? Because that was one of the things we talked about so that members could go back and
Mhm,
watch these
mhm.
meetings. I am so happy to hear that.
And that's why you need to renew your membership, Isabel, because that's a member benefit.
Yeah, I will. I mean, I really will. Promise you, I will. Even if I'm not there, I'm sitting here going, "Oh, I'd be able to watch the events because I haven't been
Mhm,
able to go." That's for sure.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, that was good just to be able to do the catch up news. And just so our listeners know, the Good Network is called Greater Orlando Organizational Development Network. It's a bunch of
Yes.
OD people, organizational development, but it's
Mhm,
also inclusive of HR, in the
mhm.
broadest sense. We have all different sizes of companies represented there, from enterprise to individuals. We focus
Yes.
on, it can be on coaching, it could be on training and learning, leadership development. I mean, pick a topic.
Mhm.
They have what's called also community of practices, COPS.
Yes.
And those are, just so our listeners know, a way that you can plug into people that have a specialized interest. If you're interested in knowing more, it is goodnetwork.us if you want to go
Yes.
visit the website and certainly sign up. So, you know, we'll make sure we continue to drive traffic to them.
Oh, we appreciate it. Yeah.
Just by that. Now, you asked about my show. So this is crazy to me. My show is also listened to globally, and I go and I check every week, like, what are the numbers? And we hit, you know, over 4,000 downloads by the end of 12/31. So this is my goal, to hit 1,000 downloads this month. And by the end of the year, I haven't done all the math, but I'm just making sure, okay, well, however it has to happen is what's going to happen, is to hit 1,000 downloads a day. So this month, 1,000 downloads. And I know what that means. That's essentially, you know, 250 downloads every week has to happen. And then that means that next month there needs to be like 500 downloads, you know,
downloads,
like having to double it. And that's where you have to think about it. If you're trying to reach that kind of scale, then you've got to spend some money on it.
Yeah.
Or have really high visibility individuals, honestly, like yourself. Because when you went out there and you shared it, you and also Jessica, I will say that there were a couple of others. Lonnie Schneider did it, and Mac did that with Mac's List, Mac Powell. Yes, they all went and did that, and that's really where your show will overnight. So one of the things I always ask is for my guests to please share it in your social feed. That's why we give you snippets, so you can also use that in your own social feeds. It's a gift to be able to give those to somebody. And then we also have the ability to really create stronger hashtags. You know what I'm going to give you also, just so you have this too? A media kit. Like, I am finding a sponsor. I'm going to have a sponsor this year, and I am monetizing this website for sure. One of the things that you can do is have a media kit, and it has sponsorship levels. And then I use Podbean as my hosting site. And with Podbean, they give you all kinds of courses. I think most of them do, on how you can monetize your site.
And the good thing about monetizing, I mean, people might think, you know, you want to make money from the podcast, but having that financial capital to be able to expand your reach to a larger audience is really what that monetization is about. You know, how are we able to share this information and serve a larger population? So
that's
I'm
what I was starting to
excited for
tell
you.
you. Thank you. Is that our podcast? I'm actually pulling it up here so I can even tell you. Our podcast is listened to in, we have no idea, Michigan. We have a huge following in Michigan. I don't understand, you know, what's going on there, but that's interesting to me. The other thing that we have been really, really popular with is, I'm moving over to my analytics so I can actually look at it, my statistics, because they'll give me that, and change it to a year view, the last 12 months. Okay. When I look at this, I can see my computer is not complying with me, but Canada, the Ukraine, Italy, Spain, this is where people are listening to the show. France, Romania, United Kingdom, Czech Republic, Germany, Philippines. Like, I'm sitting here going, wow, we have a lot of people listening to it. Now, in the United States alone, all of the states, even Alaska's showing up, and not Hawaii yet, but definitely Alaska. And we're getting followers in Canada.
Awesome.
And, you know, I know that I said US, but, you know, they're right next to us. Anyway, our strongest states are Florida, Michigan, California, Virginia, North Carolina, and New York, and Texas, and Georgia, and Oregon. So not really sure. I don't know who's there, but I love watching these types of analytics and how they morph just with organic, you know, representation. So I'm just sharing that.
That's exciting. You know what that also brings home is, you know, when we were growing up and we didn't have the internet, I know I'm dating ourselves a little bit here.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
But the world seems so huge, right? It seems so large. And then when you look at that data and that analytics, and we're both sitting in two completely different states.
Yeah, you're
I'm in
over
the Caribbean
here
and you're in
boy.
Florida. Yeah, and we're having this conversation, and where people from all over the world can listen in on this conversation, it goes to show how much smaller and smaller and smaller,
Yes,
the world is getting, and the high level of connectivity that we have with each other, which
it
is
is.
exciting.
Because I
Yeah.
talked with Sammy, and Sammy said to me, oh, I'm over in, what country is she from? Is it Mexico?
She's from Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, but I don't think
yeah.
that's where she was from at the time. She wrote me, oh, right now I'm over in whatever the country is. And I went, what? I want to live like you and Xaulanda, where I'm over in another country right now. I'm just, chilling on the beach, it's all
It's so funny you said that, because I went and I met a friend and a colleague of mine for lunch at the Buccaneer Resort this week. And it's so funny because the waitress knows me there. And I pull out my laptop and I start working. And she's like, Xaulanda, you're supposed to be on the beach relaxing. And I said, yeah, but I got work to do and I can get it done from anywhere. And this is the best ambiance to try to get the work done. This is
yeah.
this is one of the benefits of technology.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Mhm.
Well, I'm going
Yeah.
to go back and get us back on track. So I
Sure.
changed up some of my questions. So a favorite quote that you like to live by, is there one?
Trust the process.
That's a good one.
I like to say I'm a recovering control freak. I'm still
Mm.
working on the recovering part.
I say something like, I am a, I am, wait, I have it down to, oh, super controlling girl that's learned how to use her powers for good.
That's
Same
awesome.
thing.
So yeah, sometimes, and I think Martin Luther had a quote that says, sometimes you have to take the first step without seeing the entire staircase.
Mhm.
And I think, particularly within the last 3 years, I think that that's even more evident, because as we entered into the uncharted territories of COVID and just life as it is right now, we barely know what tomorrow looks like, much less what the next year is going to be. And, I've had to learn to just say, okay, this is what I have control over, which is really only a small percentage.
Oh my God. Yeah. If this is like, I usually go, if this is all, for our listeners, I'm having my hands totally spread out. If this
Mhm.
is all knowledge in the world, like, stretch your arms out both sides.
Yeah.
How much do you know? Put your hands together and like a prayer. That is how much you really know in all knowledge,
Yes.
because it's always changing too.
Yes. It's always evolving.
We think
And
we
so
know
it's
so much. We know nothing.
no, we don't. So yeah, trust the process.
Mhm. I
Mhm.
have one. So we're doing this kind of together. I like Rick Warren, The Purpose-Driven Life. I like
Mhm.
that very much. And the
Mhm.
first line of the first chapter is, it is not all about you.
Yep.
And I think that's a constant reminder, because listen, I did not get to where we are in the process of building my little empire that I asked for, and in a good way too.
Mhm.
But I didn't get here by myself. And it was because
Mhm.
there's other people that have shared my vision, believe in
Mhm.
me, trust also. And I just sit here and I go, no, nobody gets through life just by themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. No man is an island. Even though even though we have this thought that we're independent and, we can handle things on our own, I think
And
that's a big myth.
yep, it sure enough is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. I assure you it is. So the next thing is, what are you most grateful for?
I'm most grateful for family,
Mhm.
and particularly my daughter.
Waiting for that one, because honestly, I know you.
Yeah, my
You're like,
daughter, it's interesting. It's like I gave birth to this little human being, and I'm a better person because of her. And she's very much like a mirror that holds up the mirror and shows me my reflection.
mhm.
And there are times where I love what I see. And then there are other times where I'm like, ooh, I need to work on that.
Mhm.
But, she's just I'm in awe with her. And so
I look forward to
I,
meeting her. Is she in the United States or where is she?
she's in Florida. Yeah, she's in Florida and she's a millennial and she's shattering the stereotypes we think of, when you think of millennials. And yeah,
So
I'm
where
just
in
really,
Florida?
really proud of
Just a
her.
city, not a neighborhood. Where exactly?
Oh, Tampa.
Okay, yeah. Well, your home base is Orlando, so you guys are
Yeah,
pretty close.
yeah, yeah. We are pretty close. Yeah, yeah. More
Okay.
than geographically.
Mhm. I know that's true too. Because
Yeah.
it's really funny because I remember when, let's see, I don't know who was the intern that was with me right then. Maybe it was
Was
Becca.
it Alex?
No,
Oh,
I thought it was Becca that was doing the show notes. Whoever it was,
yes.
they thought that
Mhm.
your daughter, you guys were sisters. And I went, oh, you're gonna love that. She said, well, and then she first said, well, I thought that was her when she was like a little younger, but maybe they were
Oh, she's so
sisters.
sweet.
Yeah. I went, no, that's her daughter, and that's
That's
the
my
mom.
baby.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but like that's a good compliment to receive, honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I like Becca.
All right. So, how do you like to communicate with people? Do you have a favorite? Is it like in person? I think it's in person for you, but I'll give you all the choices. In person, video chat, phone, text, social channels, email, anything else, whatever, letters, like people write letters, maybe. I don't know.
I would say it depends, honestly. It depends on the situation and it depends on the purpose of the communication. So ideally, I prefer email
Mm,
because I can send it when it's convenient for me and I feel the person can read it when it's convenient for them. So I tend to gravitate towards email. If I need to have a meeting during COVID time, I prefer virtual versus phone because you can pick up on those body language clues with the Zoom or Skype meetings and you get to see the person. I've had the opportunity to connect with people around the world that I probably never would have had the time to, or we probably would not have been as open to connecting with each other had it not been for COVID and people doing so many virtual meetings now. So I do like that. But I'm very much a relator. And so when I'm in the same space, once it's safe to do so, I love to just do one-on-one in-person meetings, you know?
So the show that I did before yours was like our 2022 goals.
Uh-huh.
And I was interviewing myself, just to be clear. I'm going, so these are the goals for, Employers for Change, the
Uh-huh.
company, and then the podcast, the Employers for Change podcast, the Intern Whisperer. Like these are the goals. And I said, so, obviously on the podcast, it's 1,000 by the end of this month. So people, I need you to help us. And then, when it's Employers for Change, I said, so we are raising money and I am looking for investors. So if you have anybody or you're an investor and you like ed tech, reach out to me. Anyway, I was putting all of those kind of things out there. But when I talked about my 5 words that describe me, circling back, I said I'm relational.
Mhm.
And I said I'm a Jesus girl with a potty mouth. That's long, but like it's Jesus girl. The second thing was I said that I'm relational. I also said that servant leader, but just leader, mentor, and then an educator. Those were my words that I used to describe me.
Mhm.
And I think that I would definitely put you in that same, you're a mentor, you're a leader, you're, educator, you're very relational. Yeah, you're all of those things too.
Yeah, that's why we connect so well.
I
We
think
see it in
so.
each other. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. Okay, so then only one more question, and then
Sure.
we're gonna, well, no, we're gonna we're gonna take a moment for our
Mhm.
sponsor recognition, and then we'll be right back and we're gonna jump in the second half of the show.
The Intern Whisperer is brought to you by Cat5 Studios, who help you create games and videos for your training and marketing needs that are out of this world. Visit Cat5 Studios for more information to learn how Cat5 Studios can help your business. Thank you, Cat5 Studios.
And we're back into the second half of the show. Okay, COVID. We thought, just like you said at the beginning, we thought, oh, it's going to be over. But no, we have Omicron and it's still here. And what's going on with all of that? I think that the biggest takeaway about the impact of 2019 and when COVID came into our world that we know it, it changed everything of how we think we could do business. And I still think that even moving forward into 2022, we're going to see a lot of evolution. There will continue to be a lot of change that's going to be going on. So I don't think it's impacting for bad. It is some people, like definitely the food industry is really, they're feeling it. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, there is this really good show. It's on Hulu and it's called The Future of Food. It is so good. I would really recommend watching that because they were talking about a lot of creative ways that people that have the food businesses could, reduce their costs and be able to make a living wage, because who doesn't like to eat? And I am surprised. I read this article about how I think it was Boston Market, because nobody showed up to work. They had no food to give out, and everybody that prepaid for their Thanksgiving dinners, they had to refund all of that. And I know I've driven up even to like Taco Bell and I went, what is it? The lights are out. So yeah, it has changed the jobs that are out there. It has changed how people think about where they want to work. And to a certain extent, I sit here and I think if the use of robots and automations, we're going to see it a whole lot more in restaurants.
I think so.
Because now there's going to be certain people that they need those jobs because they either have intellectual challenges, they're neurodiverse. There are going to be a lot of people that are immigrants that don't always speak English, and they rely on jobs like being the dishwasher or being able to work in a fast food restaurant. That's going to change. And what happens to those individuals that are at risk, that are, flying under the radar for jobs? And we're going to go and flip the tables, so to speak, so that now there's going to be more automations and, robots that are taking over in that area. But we have a responsibility as humans to make sure that all people that can work have the ability to work, because not everybody's going to be a $180,000 programmer.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're definitely going to see more automation. And I think that's why there's such a necessity for upskill and reskilling of employees. There's the whole conversation about the Great Resignation and the whole mindset shift among employees. And so while we're going to see an increase in automation, I think there's also going to be an increased demand for organization and leaders to see employees as human beings, not as human assets or human capital, right? But as human beings. And I think that's why we're seeing people making different choices as it relates to where they work, how they work, and putting a lot of emphasis on the culture of their workplace, because the workplace consumes so much of our time, right? That they're trying to strike that balance, especially with COVID, where, I don't think if it was for COVID that I would be able to do as much remote work, because I'm pretty much 100% remote work, which I was before COVID, but not at this high level, right? So it's offered that level of flexibility. But to your point, I think we're going to see those changes in the restaurant industry. I think we're going to see opportunities as far as the reskilling, the upskilling of employees in areas where robots can't do the work. As advanced as it is with being able to do like technical things, robots don't have the consciousness of humans yet, right?
Not
And
yet.
so that's where those soft skills, right?
Yeah.
That's where those soft skills become critical. And so those positions where you need to have that level of consciousness to really be able to move things forward is where we need to help people gravitate. too,
Mhm.
you
And I
know.
know there's a lot of speculation that, well, where those jobs go away, there will be new jobs. Like, we're going to need people to maintain robots. Okay, let's say that we're going to need people that maintain robots. We've got to make sure that whatever the jobs are, people have a
Mhm.
way of being able to provide. There's issues with whether it's affordable housing. So, okay,
Mhm.
you've got a job, but now where are you going to live?
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of things that are out there. I was talking with somebody about electronic cars and
Mhm.
autonomous driving cars even. But this was an electric car, and I said, so tell me, I've seen plenty of places that pop up. You go to Wawa, there's a place where you can charge your car up,
Sure. Mhm.
definitely. And it looks pretty affordable, but I sat there and I said, I was talking with somebody down at Orlando Game Space where I work from, and I had said, how do you charge the car? Do you just plug it into the outlet at home? Like, is a
Mhm.
regular outlet
Mhm.
enough to charge a car? I don't know.
Mhm.
And he was explaining to me how it works. He also has a Tesla, so he doesn't even have
Yep.
to ever put his hand on the steering wheel. I mean, if he wants,
Mhm.
he doesn't have to.
Mhm.
And he was talking about a lot of the things that are out there. I found it really interesting because I went, well, if we don't, and remember, there used to be a day, I know you and I both grew up, where there was people that put gas in your car. You
Car.
didn't do it
Mhm.
yourself.
Full service gas stations. I miss those.
Oh my goodness, yeah. And then, okay, so we all have learned how to put gas in our own cars now. And then
Mhm.
there was also people that would fix your cars for you, but you can drive in and have a lot of things done. There are,
Mhm.
shops right now where they can, change your oil for you and you never see a
Mhm.
person at all. Anyway, all of these things that are happening, and I sit here and I go, okay, if we have electric cars, that impacts the construction industry because now houses have to be retrofit to be able to have
Able to.
enough
Mhm.
a charging station to
Yeah.
charge the car. They have to retrofit all of those charging stations in places, obviously big cities, but then what about the rural countries when you're traveling? Okay, I'm sitting there going, well, maybe it shouldn't be a charging station, but maybe it should be solar powered cars.
Mm.
Because if
Mhm.
you're in a rural area or you're driving your, whatever, your giant combine and you're a farmer, and we probably won't have that because everything would be more aquaponics, more efficient farming, right? Then where is it that we would have these gaps of technology, whether it's and finding jobs? It's always going back to the jobs. We've got to
Yep.
think about the bigger picture and how that impacts the cities and then the little towns and then
Mhm.
those that are the immigrants and those that are neurodiverse. We have to think about the whole big picture. You can't just, oh yeah,
Mhm.
we're going to go flip a switch. Yeah, we're going
Yeah.
to flip a switch, but we still have to address the
You have
whole
to consider the impact.
process, the
Yeah.
impact and the
The
process.
impact of progress, right?
Yeah.
Progress.
Yeah, progress is more important than the process. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So what do you think because multicultural, you're a consultant in this area of
Mhm.
multicultural inclusion, what does that mean? Just share that with our listeners. And then how do
Mhm.
you think that's going to change between now and 2030? Do you have thoughts? What are they? I know I do, but
Oh yeah, and a matter of fact, I'm seeing it now because on the mainland, in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, there's this huge push for like representation,
Mhm.
right? So for example, in the entertainment industry, you may see a lot more African American or Black people presented in, shows that are on Netflix or shows that are streaming or stuff like that. Also Latino population is more
Asian.
represented, and Asian, right? So on the mainland where that's very important, right? And there seems to be an uptick of education, particularly after George Floyd, about different ethnic groups and races, which is very important. What's interesting is where I am from in the Virgin Islands, we are the majority.
Mhm.
So we have the representation, right? And so what I am finding is I'm having two conversations but on polar opposite ends of the spectrum, depending on where I'm at. And then it's where I'm sharing that, okay, we have, for example, a Black community or an African American community, but that community is not monolithic.
Mm-hmm.
Like an African American, while we have a lot in common with people who are from the Caribbean or people who are from the Caribbean diaspora, we might show up the same or be perceived the same, because when I'm on the mainland, I'm perceived as African American. We have cultural nuances that are very distinct and very different.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's even that subculture education that needs to happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so from a multicultural standpoint is realizing that diversity, yes, is that whole education as it relates to race, ethnicity, nationality, but diversity really has to do with every characteristic of being a human being.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we talk about disability, whether you were born with a disability or you acquired a disability, that's part of a cultural education that needs to happen. When you look at socioeconomic status, the language, the nuances, the beliefs, the norms, the cultures of somebody who comes from wealth is different from somebody who comes from the middle class or somebody who grew up in poverty. There's a whole slew of cultural dimensions that makes it very complex. That there's a lot of education that needs to happen, because as human beings, like in high school, we tend to gravitate to people who are very much like us.
Of course, that's just human
Right.
nature.
And it's human nature. But as the demographic shift is happening, there's going to be more and more people that are showing up who are different than we are. And so it requires a level of learning, continuous learning. It requires a level of curiosity. It requires a level of self-awareness, right?
Acceptance of others and yourself too.
Yeah, but also self-awareness in yourself to recognize that I myself have unconscious bias, and hopefully I'm in a space with people that I trust that they feel comfortable enough to say, hey, Xaulanda, you know, when you said that, I don't think you realized that you might have some unconscious bias. So it's really having that continuous conversation and exploration and learning amongst each other in a way that is hopefully not polarizing and threatening, but more from a place of learning. And I think that's just the OD in us. Right? It's how do we learn as human beings to be more accepting and more inclusive and more human.
That is very, very true. Very true. Very,
Yeah.
very. So I know we're going to have to wrap up the show here really quick. I'm going to ask you, did you take a screenshot of us so I can have that in our...
I can take one right now if you
Yeah,
smile.
if you'll do that. Yes. But the other thing I'm going to add is, I'll ask you for this, is best mentoring advice you want to share with our listeners. So screenshot.
The best mentoring advice I had.
And I know it can change because honestly,
Yeah.
I listen to really good mentoring advice every week. And one of the things that I said, I'm going to go back to Randy Baker. I'm going to keep citing him for a few more episodes for sure. He said that his boss had asked him and said, Randy, I want you, you know, you think that you're a really good communicator. You're not. He said, I want you, you're not listening. You're not giving me what I'm asking you for. You're giving me what you think I want because you're not really listening to what I'm asking you for. And I went, that is so true.
Yeah. As I think of mentoring advice, I think of my former CEO and mentor who's passed because he had such a huge impression on my life. And there was a couple of things that he used to say all the time. He used to say, trust, but verify.
That's good.
As a leader, you need to trust your team. If you have a team member that you don't trust, then you need to question why you have that team member. Because you more than likely are the person who selected them, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't trust them, what can you do to help rebuild that trust? But as you trust your team to get things done, you don't micromanage them. You just verify that what they say they're doing, and the direction you're moving in. And then, and that was the first one. And the second thing he used to say was, ask me for forgiveness, do not ask me for permission. And that was his way of saying, I trust you. Yeah, you're empowered, and I trust you to make the right decision at that moment for the team and the organization. And if you fail, it's okay, because we're going to learn something from that trip up. Right?
Good counsel there.
Yeah. And he used to say, don't wait on me for permission to do something that you feel is in the best interest of the organization. Just do it. And then let me know, and we will deal with it after. So I would say those were the two best mentoring advices I got from Mr. Nelson: is trust but verify, and ask for forgiveness, not permission.
I like that last one too.
So how can people get in touch with you? Now, I usually say, don't give out your email, because you can be hit with a lot of things. However, info at, if you want to use that one, or LinkedIn. If you want to share your email, you can, but we have over 4,000 downloads, and our show airs around the world. And, by the end of this month, I want to see we hit 5,000 downloads.
So the way to reach me, the best way to reach me is via my email. So I will give it out.
Okay.
It is xau@xausky.com. So ja@shasky.com. People can also reach me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn every day. Xaulanda Simmonds-Emmanuel is the best way to look for me. And if you do XAULANDA, I would venture to guess that I'm probably the only person who's going to come up, because there are not that many Xaulandas on LinkedIn. So that's the best two ways to reach me. Yeah. And then you could always visit our website, www.shasky, which is XAUSKY.com.
All right. Well, we are at the end of our show here. So I'm going to
It was
say
so much fun.
thank you. It's been delightful. I can't wait to see how well this show does. You're going to start. You'll probably hit 1,000 downloads, and I'll hit it before the end of January, just because of you. You are an awesome woman. We'll tell you, the guest that's coming on after is Jane Oates, and she's with Working Nation. Do you know her?
No, I don't.
Okay, that woman
I
was
would love to
appointed by
meet her.
Obama to an office when when he was in office. She is a mover and a shaker, and she is all about skills of the future and future jobs. So that's the show that follows yours.
That's definitely a show to listen to.
All right. So I want to say thank you to our sponsor, Cat 5 Studios. Thank you to our production team, our video interns, Chase McDowell, David Ullman, and Keisha Perez. Our music is by Sophie Lloyd, Charles Fleming, Elijah Sutton, Dave Francis, and Diego Leal. And sound effects, Eric Peterson, Matt Miller, Miguel Sintra, and Dave Francis. Visit Employers for Change at www.e4c.tech to learn how you can create real diversity and inclusion culture while skilling your people for the future. Thank you, Xaulanda, for being a guest on the show. I am so grateful.
Thanks for having me.